In the quiet depths of space, the name Selkar was nothing more than a whisper. It was a name so feared, so shrouded in mystery, that entire star systems trembled at the mere thought of it. He wasn't a man. He wasn't even human. Selkar was an assassin, a remnant of the long-forgotten Serethi species, an extinct race known for their unmatched skill in combat and their deadly precision. For centuries, Selkar had worked from the shadows, moving through galaxies like a ghost, never seen but always leaving destruction in his wake. No one knew what he looked like, only that wherever he went, death followed. He was the best, but now something had changed. It began when the whispers started. There were rumors of a new threat, an ancient order rising from the forgotten corners of the universe. The Obsidian Flame. The Obsidian Flame was a name that made even the bravest warriors hesitate, for they were not just another enemy. They were the remnants of a long-lost civilization, a group that had been sealed away centuries ago by the Serethi themselves. No one knew exactly what they were capable of, but Selkar knew enough. His people had sealed them away for a reason. They were dangerous, far more dangerous than anything he had ever faced. As days passed, Selkar found himself being hunted, not by bounty hunters or rival assassins, but by something far worse. The Obsidian Flame was coming for him. Their reach extended far beyond anything Selkar had ever anticipated, and their wrath was far more terrifying than the galaxy had ever seen. No place was safe, not even the hidden corners of space where he had once taken refuge. The time for hiding was over. He had no choice but to make a decision that would shock the galaxy. He would turn to humanity for help. Humanity, a young species, barely emerging from their own planet's shadow. They had only recently begun to spread across the stars, and yet they were gaining power. Their strength lay not in technology or brute force, but in their will to survive. Humans had a resilience, an unpredictable quality that no one in the galaxy could truly understand. It was that very unpredictability that Selkar needed now. He had never trusted humans. He had never trusted anyone, but desperation had made him reconsider. The Obsidian Flame was too powerful, and for the first time in his life, Selkar found himself questioning his own ability to defeat them. His journey led him to Vanguard 9, a human colony on the outer edges of the galaxy. The planet was largely unprotected, hidden from the prying eyes of more powerful races. Selkar's arrival was silent. He slipped through the planetary defenses with ease, moving like a shadow in the night. The human forces on the planet were unaware of his presence until it was too late. But he wasn't here to fight. He wasn't here to destroy. Selkar was seeking something more valuable than any weapon, knowledge, and he knew exactly where to find it. He found her on the command deck of Vanguard 9's central base. Commander Ilara Voss. Ilara was a former intelligence officer, known throughout the human colonies for her keen instincts and unmatched leadership skills. She had led countless successful missions, always coming out on top, but she had never faced anything like this. When Selkar first appeared in front of her, he did not demand anything. Instead, he made a quiet request to be protected. The humans did not trust him. They had every reason not to. He was an assassin, an agent of death. But Ilara saw something in his eyes, something beyond the cold exterior. She could see the desperation, the fear of an ancient enemy that even Selkar could not defeat alone. Reluctantly, Ilara agreed to help him, but only on one condition. Selkar would share everything he knew about the Obsidian Flame, and so began an uneasy alliance between humanity and one of the deadliest assassins the galaxy had ever known. In the following days, Ilara and Selkar worked together in secrecy, unraveling the mystery surrounding the Obsidian Flame. What they discovered was horrifying. The Obsidian Flame was not just a group of fanatical warriors. They were something far worse. They had learned to harness a power that could rewrite the very fabric of reality itself. Their weapon was not physical, it was psychological. They could twist the minds of entire populations, turning them against themselves. They could erase memories, manipulate thoughts, and in some cases, make people forget who they were altogether. As Xelkar shared his knowledge, Ilara began to understand the true threat. Humanity was not just at risk. It was in danger of being erased, of losing everything they had worked so hard to build. But there was hope. Xelkar believed that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to resist. The obsidian flame might have the power to bend minds, but humanity had something far stronger: willpower. They could fight back, even against the most insurmountable odds. Together, they formed a plan. Xelkar would train a select group of human operatives, teaching them the ancient techniques of the Jurathi. These were skills long forgotten, skills that no other species had ever mastered. With this knowledge, Ilara and Xelkar would lead a counterattack against the obsidian flame. But as they prepared for battle, the obsidian flame struck. In a sudden and brutal assault, they attacked Vanguard 9, unleashing their full might on the human colony. The planet's defenses crumbled in moments, and the skies turned dark as enemy ships filled the atmosphere. It seemed like all hope was lost. But humanity did not give up. Under Ilara's leadership, the humans fought back with everything they had. They didn't fight with advanced technology or overwhelming firepower. They fought with their hearts, their determination, and their unwavering belief that they could win. Xelkar, who had always fought alone, now stood alongside them, fighting not just for survival, but for something more. He fought for hope, for the future of a species that had shown him what true strength really was. The battle raged on for hours, but the tide began to turn. The obsidian flame had underestimated humanity's will to survive. They had underestimated the strength of a species that would never give in, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. In the end, the obsidian flame was defeated, their power broken, and the galaxy was saved, thanks to a deadly assassin and the resilience of the human spirit. Xelkar, once a solitary killer, stood among the humans, no longer just a weapon of destruction, but a symbol of what they could achieve when they worked together. As the dust settled, he knew one thing for certain: the galaxy had just witnessed the rise of a new legend, and it was humanity that had proven itself to be the most powerful force in the universe. The galaxy had always been full of mysteries, but none more puzzling than the humans. Across the stars, many species had watched with curiosity as humanity evolved from a single planet to become an influential force in the galaxy. From the outside, they appeared primitive, their technology nowhere near as advanced as the more established civilizations. Yet there was something about them that caught the attention of the most powerful empires. No one could quite figure out what it was, but it was undeniable. Humanity was different. Among the many who watched the rise of the humans was Caligor, a high-ranking officer from the Valorian Empire. A species renowned for their intellect and strategic prowess. The Valorians had seen many civilizations come and go, and they prided themselves on being the galaxy's most advanced race. But when it came to humans, they were perplexed. The Valorians had studied them for years, analyzing their behavior, their cultures, and their technology. But there was always a missing piece to the puzzle. The humans seemed to possess an unpredictable quality that no one could explain, and that was what troubled Caligor. He had always believed in logic, in facts and calculations. But humans, they defied all logic. Their ability to adapt, to survive against all odds, baffled him. It was as if they could find solutions where none existed, and in the most unexpected ways. No matter how much the Valorians tried to understand them, the humans remained an enigma, a puzzle that couldn't be solved. Caligor's obsession with understanding humans grew. He started observing them more closely, studying their behavior patterns, and even infiltrating their networks. But every time he thought he was getting closer to an answer, something would happen that would make him question everything he knew. The humans didn't act like any species he had encountered before. They didn't follow predictable patterns. They didn't rely on advanced technology or brute strength alone. It was as if their strength came from something deeper, something hidden. Then came a turning point. The Valorian Empire, in their quest for dominance, set their sights on a strategic human colony known as Terra 9. It was a small world, barely defended, and the perfect target for a quick conquest. Kelgor was tasked with leading the invasion, and he believed it would be an easy victory. But as his fleet arrived in the system, something unexpected happened. The humans didn't retreat. They didn't surrender. Instead, they fought back with an intensity that surprised him. The battle was fierce, but it wasn't the human weapons that impressed him. It was their tactics. The humans, with far fewer resources, seemed to anticipate his every move, countering his strategies with ones that made no logical sense, yet worked perfectly. Kelgor found himself struggling, unable to predict their next move. Every plan he devised was foiled, and his fleet began to suffer losses. For the first time in his long career, Kelgor was forced to reconsider his view of humanity. How could they possibly know what he was going to do? How were they always one step ahead? As the battle raged on, Kelgor received an encrypted message. It was from a human commander named Captain Ilara Voss. The message was simple, but it contained a cryptic warning. You are not facing our weapons. You are facing our will, and our will cannot be defeated. The word struck Kelgor like a blow. Was it possible? Was it really their will that made the humans so formidable? He had always believed that victory depended on superior firepower, on intelligence, and on strategy. But the humans seemed to rely on something else, something that couldn't be measured or calculated. Their will to survive, their determination to never give up, no matter the cost, was their true strength. As Kelgor pondered these questions, the battle on Terra 9 took a shocking turn. The humans, under Captain Voss's command, launched a daring counterattack, pushing the Valorian forces back. The tactics they used were unconventional, relying on deception, guerrilla warfare, and surprising tactics that Kelgor hadn't anticipated. But there was something else, something deeper. The humans fought not because they had superior technology, but because they had something far more powerful, a belief in their cause. Captain Voss's leadership was inspiring. Her crew followed her without question, driven by their loyalty to each other and in their home. Kelgor realized that this was the secret to their strength. It wasn't their technology. It wasn't their weapons. It was their unity, their ability to come together in the face of impossible odds. They fought not just for survival, but for something greater, their future. Frustrated, Kelgor called for a ceasefire, hoping to negotiate a surrender. But when he boarded the human base to meet Captain Voss, he was met with something unexpected. The humans didn't seem afraid of him. They didn't see him as an invader. Instead, they saw him as a challenge, a puzzle to be solved. Captain Voss welcomed him with a calm confidence, almost as if she had expected this moment to come. "I know why you've come," she said, her voice steady. "You think you can conquer us, but you don't understand. We're not a people to be defeated. You can destroy our cities, you can kill our soldiers, but you cannot break our spirit. You cannot erase who we are." Kelgor was silent, his mind racing. He had never encountered anything like this before. He had seen entire species fall before the might of the Valorian Empire, but the humans, they were different. Their resilience, their refusal to give in, had shaken him to his core. It was as if they had unlocked a secret that no one else in the galaxy had discovered, the power of the human will. In the days that followed, Kelgor found himself unable to leave Terra 9. The humans did not celebrate their victory, but they did not mourn either. They simply continued with their lives, rebuilding and preparing for whatever came next. It was a humbling experience for him. He had come to conquer, but instead, he had discovered a truth that no one could have predicted. Humanity could not be understood by logic alone. He had solved the puzzle, but in doing so, he realized that the puzzle itself was something far more profound than he had ever imagined. The humans were not just a race to be studied, nor were they simply a threat to be eliminated. They were something far more complex, something that would change the galaxy forever. As Caligor returned to the Valorian Empire, he carried with him a new understanding. Humanity was no longer a puzzle to be solved. They were an enigma to be respected. And in that respect, he knew they would become a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. The galaxy had long been filled with whispers, ancient rumors that traveled from one star system to another, carried by traders, explorers, and adventurers. Among the most intriguing was the tale of the Zerathi, a mysterious and long-lost race whose existence had been erased from the records of the galaxy. Little was known about them, but what was known sent chills down the spines of those who heard it. The Zerathi were said to be the creators of unimaginable technologies, capable of manipulating space and time. However, they had vanished, leaving no trace of their advanced civilization, except for their secrets, hidden deep within forgotten worlds. Captain Jade Morrison had always been drawn to mysteries. A skilled explorer and captain of the starship Odyssey, Jade had spent her career seeking out the unknown, hoping to uncover something that would define her legacy. When her crew intercepted a distress signal coming from an uncharted planet on the edge of known space, she knew it was the opportunity she had been waiting for. The signal was faint, but it carried a strange, unfamiliar pattern. It was unlike anything her ship's systems had ever encountered, and it seemed to be originating from within the atmosphere of an ancient, forgotten world. Jade had heard rumors about the Zerathi, just like everyone else in the galaxy, but those stories were always dismissed as myths. Until now. The signal was a calling, and Jade couldn't resist the urge to investigate. She gathered her crew, a team of highly skilled officers and scientists, and set course for the unknown world. As they neared the planet, the ship's sensors detected strange fluctuations in the atmosphere, indicating the presence of technology far beyond anything known to the galaxy. As they landed, Jade felt a sense of unease. The planet was eerily silent, covered in dense jungles that seemed to swallow up the light. The ruins of a once great city lay scattered across the landscape, but everything appeared abandoned, as though the civilization had simply disappeared overnight. The buildings, made from an unidentifiable black material, stood tall but crumbled in places, their surfaces covered in strange symbols that seemed to pulse with an energy all their own. Jade couldn't help but feel as though the planet itself was watching them, waiting for something. "Captain, we've never seen anything like this before," said Dr. Kieran Elms, the ship's lead scientist, as he examined the ancient structures. "This technology, it's centuries ahead of anything we know. But there's no sign of life. It's like the Zerathi just vanished." Jade's heart raced as she stared at the mysterious symbols, trying to make sense of them. They seemed to glow faintly, and some appeared to shift, as though they were changing before her eyes. It was clear that the Zerathi had mastered something far beyond the current understanding of the galaxy. But the deeper they delved into the ruins, the more questions arose. Why had the Zerathi disappeared? What had happened to them? As the crew explored further, they uncovered a hidden entrance deep beneath the ruins, leading them into an underground labyrinth. The air grew colder, and the walls seemed to hum with an otherworldly energy. Jade could feel the presence of something ancient and powerful. She could hear whispers, but when she turned to look, no one was speaking. "This doesn't feel right," said Lieutenant Corwin, the ship's security officer, his voice tense. "We should turn back." But Jade ignored the warning. The signal had led them here, and they were getting closer to the truth. They pressed forward, moving deeper into the heart of the Zerathi's hidden world. As they descended, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. The walls around them seemed to close in, and Jade began to feel as though they were being watched by unseen eyes. Eventually, they reached a massive chamber, its walls covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change with every step they took. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested a small glowing orb. The energy it radiated was unlike anything Jade had ever felt before. It was both terrifying and beautiful at the same time. "That's it," Dr. Elms whispered, his voice filled with awe. That's the source of the signal. It's a Jerathi artifact, a key to their technology. Jade approached the pedestal slowly, her mind racing. This was it, the heart of the Jerathi's lost civilization. But as she reached for the orb, something inside her hesitated. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The Jerathi had vanished for a reason, and there was something about this artifact that felt dangerous. Before Jade could make a move, the room around them began to tremble. The floor cracked, and a deep, rumbling sound echoed through the chamber. The orb flickered, its glow intensifying. Jade's crew scrambled to hold onto something as the room seemed to warp around them, the walls shifting and bending in unnatural ways. "Get away from it," Corwin shouted, pulling Jade back. But it was too late. The orb erupted in a burst of blinding light, and everything went black. When Jade awoke, she found herself lying on the cold stone floor. The others were scattered around the room, disoriented but alive. The chamber was still intact, but something had changed. The symbols on the walls now glowed brightly, casting an eerie light across the room. It was clear that the artifact had done something they didn't fully understand. "What happened?" Dr. Elms asked, rubbing his head. "Did the artifact activate?" Jade stood up slowly, her mind racing. She felt different, changed somehow, as if the orb had opened something within her, something hidden deep inside. She could feel a connection to the Jerathi, to their lost civilization. It was as though their knowledge was now a part of her, as though the secrets of their technology were within her grasp. "Captain, what's happening to you?" Corwin asked, his voice filled with concern. Jade's eyes were wide as she focused on the glowing symbols on the walls. The whispers had returned, but now they made sense. They were not just random noises. They were instructions that only she could understand. The Jerathi had left behind more than just technology. They had left behind a legacy, a key to unlock the mysteries of the universe. In that moment, Jade realized that they had not just uncovered the secrets of the Jerathi, they had become part of their legacy. But what would that mean for the galaxy? What would it mean for them? And what would happen if the Jerathi's enemies, those who had caused their downfall, discovered that their secrets had been unlocked once again? As Jade stared at the orb, a chilling thought crossed her mind. The Jerathi had disappeared for a reason. And now, the galaxy would be forced to confront the consequences of uncovering their most dangerous secrets. In the dark corners of the galaxy, a war was about to begin, one that would not be fought with weapons, but with secrets, lies, and manipulation. The Shadow War, as it would come to be known, had remained hidden for centuries, a conflict fought in the shadows, where even the most powerful forces in the galaxy were blind to its existence. But now, something had changed. A new player had emerged, someone who understood the true nature of the war and was determined to tip the balance. Commander Callan Drake, a seasoned officer of the United Earth Fleet, had spent his career fighting visible battles against known enemies. He had seen wars fought in space, with fleets of ships clashing in the void, but nothing had prepared him for the mission he was now facing. It was supposed to be just another routine intelligence-gathering operation on a distant, uncharted world. But as his ship, the Raven, approached the planet Elysium, something felt off. There was a strange signal emanating from the planet's surface, one that was coded in a language that no one in the fleet could recognize. "Commander, we've never encountered anything like this before," Lieutenant Tessa Ford, the ship's communications officer, said, her voice tight with unease. "This isn't just a distress signal. It's something else. Something deliberate." Kalen's instincts kicked in. He knew that this wasn't a coincidence. Something had been hidden here, something that had been waiting for the right moment to be uncovered. And now, that moment had arrived. They landed on the surface of Elysium in the dead of night, the skies above dark and foreboding. The planet was desolate, covered in ruins from a long-forgotten civilization. But as they ventured deeper into the planet's ancient cities, Kalen could feel it, A presence, something that lingered in the air like a faint whisper just beyond hearing. It was as if the very ground beneath his feet was alive with the weight of secrets. Tessa led the way, her eyes scanning the terrain with a practiced focus. "The signal's coming from underground," she said, pointing to a series of ancient tunnels that lay hidden beneath the ruins. "If we can find the source, we might be able to decipher it." As they descended into the tunnels, the air grew colder, and the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Callan couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone, that someone, or something, had been waiting for them. They reached a large chamber, its walls lined with strange symbols, the likes of which no one had ever seen before. In the center of the room stood an enormous metallic structure, an obelisk-like device, pulsating with energy. This is what was sending the signal," Tessa said, her voice filled with awe and fear. "But what is it?" Callan stepped forward, drawn to the device. It was both alien and familiar, its design like nothing he had ever encountered. As his hand brushed against its surface, a jolt of energy surged through his body, and for a moment, he saw flashes, visions of a war fought in the shadows, powerful factions moving behind the scenes, manipulating events on a galactic scale. The Shadow War. It was real, and they had just stumbled upon its starting point. Before Callan could process what he had seen, the ground shook violently. The walls of the chamber began to crack, and a low, rumbling sound echoed through the tunnels. "We need to get out of here," Tessa shouted, her voice panicked. But it was too late. A group of armed figures appeared at the far end of the chamber, emerging from the shadows like wraiths. They were clad in dark, form-fitting armor, their faces hidden behind helmets. The leader, a tall figure with an unmistakable presence, stepped forward. He did not speak, but his intent was clear. They were here for the device, and they would do whatever it took to claim it. Callan drew his weapon, his heart racing. He had never faced enemies like these before, swift, silent, and deadly. They moved like shadows, their every step calculated and precise. The battle that followed was quick and brutal. Callan and his crew fought back with everything they had, but it was clear that they were outmatched. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were part of something far larger, far more dangerous. In the midst of the chaos, Callan managed to catch a glimpse of the leader's face, just for a moment. His eyes were cold, calculating, and familiar. The recognition hit Callan like a wave. This man was no stranger. He had seen him before, in his dreams, in the flashes of the visions that had come from the device. He was a key figure in the Shadow War, a war that was about to tear the galaxy apart. As the fight raged on, Callan's mind raced. Who were these people? What did they want with the device? And why had they chosen this moment to reveal themselves? He barely had time to process his thoughts before the leader of the group lunged at him, a blade drawn. Callan barely had time to react, but he managed to dodge, knocking the weapon out of the man's hand. "You're too late," the leader hissed, his voice low and threatening. "The Shadow War has already begun. You can't stop it now." With that, the figure disappeared into the shadows, his soldiers following suit. The room fell silent, the remnants of the battle hanging in the air. Callan stood there, breathless, his mind reeling. The war he had unknowingly walked into was not a simple conflict. It was a war of manipulation, of hidden forces playing a dangerous game. Back aboard the Raven, Callan and his crew tried to make sense of what had happened. The device, the visions, the shadowy figures, they were all pieces of a much larger puzzle. The Shadow War had been set in motion, and now they were in the middle of it. But one thing was certain: the galaxy was changing, and the battle they had just fought was only the beginning. "This isn't over," Callan said, his voice grim as he looked out at the stars. "The true war is just beginning, and we're going to have to fight it in the shadows, just like everyone else." As the Raven flew away from Elysium, Callan knew that nothing would ever be the same. The Shadow War had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The stars shimmered silently above, casting their cold light upon the barren wasteland of Korrath, a planet forgotten by time. The winds howled, carrying with them a sense of unease that seemed to permeate every inch of the desolate landscape. Few had ever ventured here, and fewer still had returned. But it was on this planet, amid the ruins of an ancient civilization, that a new legend would be born, one that would change the course of history forever. Captain Eric Cade stood alone on the edge of a massive cliff, his eyes scanning the horizon. He was a seasoned soldier of the United Earth Forces, known for his bravery in countless battles across the galaxy. But this mission was different. He had been sent here on the orders of the highest command to find something important. The rumors had been spreading for months now, whispers of an ancient power buried deep beneath the surface of Korrath. No one knew exactly what it was, but everyone agreed on one thing. It had the potential to shift the balance of power in the galaxy. "Captain, we've located the entrance," came the voice of Lieutenant Zara Holt, his communications officer, crackling through his earpiece. Her tone was tense, a reflection of the gravity of the situation. "You need to hurry. We're picking up strange readings. Something's not right." Eric didn't respond immediately. Instead, he took one last look at the landscape before turning and heading toward the narrow path that led to the entrance Zora had mentioned. As he walked, his mind raced. The mission was simple: find the source of the power, retrieve it, and bring it back to Earth. But as with every mission, things were never as simple as they seemed. When Eric arrived at the entrance, he found himself standing before a massive stone door, covered in ancient symbols that seemed to shift in the dim light. It was clear that this place had been untouched for centuries, but there was no time for awe. He pressed a button on his wristpad, and the door slowly began to open with a deep, echoing rumble. The air inside was thick, heavy with the scent of decay and dust. His footsteps echoed through the corridor as he ventured deeper into the heart of the forgotten temple. The further he went, the more the atmosphere seemed to change. The walls were lined with carvings of strange creatures, half human, half beast, locked in fierce battle with shadowy figures. Eric felt a chill run down his spine. These were not mere symbols. They were warnings. Whoever had created this place had known the dangers that lay within. He was not sure whether he was prepared to face them, but there was no turning back now. Finally, after what felt like hours of wandering through the darkened halls, Eric arrived at the inner chamber. It was a vast, circular room, its floor covered in ancient runes. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and upon it, a strange device pulsed with an eerie blue light. The moment Eric laid eyes on it, he felt a surge of energy course through his body. It was as if the very air around him had come alive. This was the power they had been searching for. But the question was, why had it been hidden here for so long? As he approached the pedestal, Eric's mind was flooded with visions, flashes of battle, of wars fought not with weapons, but with the very fabric of reality itself. He saw vast armies of soldiers, not human, but something else, something far more ancient, their power drawn not from technology, but from the energy of the universe itself. And in the midst of it all, a figure appeared, a warrior, cloaked in shadow, wielding a blade that glowed with the same blue light as the device. The vision faded, but its meaning was clear. The legend of Korrath was not just a myth, it was real. And the power that had been hidden here for centuries, dangerous than anyone could have imagined. Suddenly, the room shook, and the walls began to tremble. The ground beneath Eric's feet cracked open, and from the darkness below, a figure emerged. It was the same figure from the vision. A warrior clad in black armor, his eyes glowing with the same blue light that pulsed from the device. Eric instinctively reached for his weapon, but the figure was faster, drawing his own blade with a fluid motion that seemed almost impossible. "You've awakened it," the figure said, his voice low and cold, as if it had been lost in time. "Now you must face the consequences." Before Eric could react, The figure lunged, his blade cutting through the air with terrifying speed. Eric barely managed to dodge, the tip of the blade grazing his shoulder. Blood dripped down his arm, but the pain was nothing compared to the overwhelming sense of dread that now filled his chest. This was no ordinary enemy. This was something far more ancient, far more powerful. The two warriors clashed, their blades ringing out in the silence of the chamber. Eric fought with everything he had, his training and skill guiding his every movement. But with each strike, he realized just how outmatched he was. The warrior's movements were too fluid, too precise. It was as if he had been born for this purpose, to fight, to kill, to protect the secrets of Korrath. As the battle raged on, Eric's mind raced. He knew he had to find a way to stop this warrior, to stop the ancient power that had been awakened. But how? He was running out of time. The device on the pedestal continued to pulse, and with every beat, the warrior grew stronger, his attacks more relentless. In a desperate move, Eric lunged forward, knocking the warrior's blade aside. He reached for the device, his fingers brushing against its cool surface. The moment he touched it, the room erupted in light, blinding him. He felt the power surge through him, not just in his body, but in his mind, in his very soul. The warrior howled in fury as the energy from the device surrounded Eric, empowering him, transforming him. When the light faded, Eric stood alone, the warrior gone. He could feel the power within him, coursing through his veins. It was as if he had become part of the legend himself. He had unlocked the secrets of Korrath, and in doing so, he had become the new guardian of its power. The weight of this responsibility settled upon his shoulders, but Eric knew that he had no choice. The galaxy would never be the same again. He was no longer just a soldier. He was something more. A new legend had been born, and it was his to carry. As Eric made his way back to his ship, the weight of his new powers settling within him, he couldn't help but wonder, what consequences awaited him now that the legend of Korrath had been awakened? What forces would come for him, seeking to control the power he had unlocked? The answers were still unclear, but one thing was certain. The journey was far from over. The galaxy was about to change, and Eric Cade would be at the center of it all.